Welcome everybody to another episode of Warhammer Weekly. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer. I am here as always with my co-host Pliny the Elder. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends.
Joining us also this week is Nick Fenske of Big Bad Bat Reps. Nick, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Vince.
It is wonderful to have you, sir. Always a pleasure. So let's jump right in. News, rumors, stuff, things, excitement. All right, well, Tom, why don't you start us off, man? Where are we beginning this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had kind of some hit and miss with the releases, with the rumors at least. One of them that came in this week was suggesting, like a lot of this is all the same, like a lot of samey stuff. There's not a lot of anything that's been like really shocking, so to say. There was one that came in on Warseer that suggested that round bases are a go. Okay, supposedly this came from a local shopkeeper that was arguing or talking about carrying Warhammer, and so it was through their production chain that this conversation was had. But round bases are going to be coming, which we've basically already known. That you'll be able to play with square bases, but once 9th edition hits, round bases are going to be what all the boxes are full of, which that would seem to confirm what we've been seeing with like battalion sets that have been all round bases, stuff like that people have kind of reported on the forums.
And also, just to jump in there was a couple clan packs, obviously, that people showed that had both a square and a round base in them, more than just sort of one where it could be an accidental production error or something, the wrong thing packaged. There were multiple different pictures shown of clan packs with both square and rounds in them.
Yep. The rumor was that everything's going to be able to be to skirmish, but many units will be able to rank up as well, and then GW is going to release special movement trays that I'm assuming are round base, kind of like the Lotro trays. The rumor doesn't detail that, but I'm assuming that's probably what they're doing. The one thing that was interesting about this was that they basically suggested that, much like 40K, Unbound is going to exist as part of the core rule set, and that like certain scenarios and whatnot will like you'll need to have like units in an unbound army won't be able to hold them, stuff like that. So bound armies are going to be kind of though there will be benefits in the rule set again, like 40K.
So Nick, what's your feelings on that? What do you think about the whole if that's just an option in the rule book and the idea that there are scenarios that are constructed that bound armies, formation armies, whatever have advantages at? Do you like that? Not like that?
I guess I'm all for that. The thing that concerns me most about a skirmish type game is kind of the whole movement thing. So I think that's what separates Warhammer Fantasy from a lot of other games. Specifically, its sister or brother, whatever you want to call it, 40K, and the fact that it's a skirmish game and you have 360-degree line of sight. I think what draws a lot of people into Warhammer Fantasy is the movement phase and the angles and the the gameplay of that. So if that were to go away, that would be a big hit for me. I mean, that would there's a lot of skirmish games out there, including 40K as it exists now. I don't know why they would want to compete with themselves.
Well, right. What I would ask is that Nick, what do you think about? Do you think that if the 360-degree visibility or arc in the skirmish game, if that was different than the actual large-scale battle, or for example, as we've kind of talked about, what if solo units, either solo characters or monsters, had 360-degree vision, but anytime you have a formation, they don't have that visibility. They still have their normal line of sight.
I guess that would make sense. I guess I'm looking, or what I expect more from 9th edition when it pops out is kind of more of an 8.5-ish type deal. I'm really, despite all the rumors that are going on, I am not expecting a full-blown reboot. There's a lot of talk that the backstory and the setting is going to pick up a little bit after where the end times ended, but I think gameplay moving forward is just going to be, and this is just my opinion 100%, that it's just going to be little nicks and changes that make it a better game. I do believe in the 3-game thing where they'll have a skirmish level, and that's okay. I think war bands are fun, or it's kind of cool to just make little smaller games and do that as an introductory to the game. I had a discussion with a bunch of friends at the game group. We play at Fantasy Flight Games on Thursday nights, and I said, you know, what makes fantasy so inaccessible to most people is that it's the buy-in cost, and that, like, if you buy a box of skeletons, you can't play Warhammer Fantasy with a box of skeletons. If you're playing 40K or a lot of other games, you can buy a box of dudes and play with them. It's a viable unit. Just you buy the box and you play it. So maybe they're trying to reach that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I absolutely agree. The barrier of entry thing we've talked about before, and I can't emphasize it enough. I think it's a huge deal. I really do. And to me, that rumor reads, you know, pretty in line with everything else we've seen. I don't mind. I love the idea of having 2 settings to the game. I always loved Mordheim, and one of my biggest complaints was that there wasn't a direct path between Mordheim and Warhammer in the traditional sense, right? That I couldn't, like, take my warband and grow it in some fashion, and then it became an army on the other side. You know, that they were kind of, even though they were using the same underlying rules, there was no bridge, right? They're both islands. Nobody bothered to build a bridge between them. So if that was more, you know, concrete and laid down, yeah, I'd love to see that. I think that would be fantastic. So I'm all about that. All right, Tom, what else have we got on the rumor plate?
Yeah, and just the tail end of that was that that the new faction, which is going to basically be humans, is Empire kind of plus and Bretonnia plus some new troops. And I guess this individual in that rumor chain was that he was very clear that no army was quote unquote like being squatted. So again, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they're not selling any, like, certain armies, or everything's going to continue? Current stock is all going to continue to be sold? You know, yeah. I mean, that could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think when somebody asked one of the rumor mongers for a clarification, and their explanation was they stopped making new stuff for it.
Right. Right.
That's what that means. Like, if they're just, it's no longer supported. Which there's tons of units and armies in the history of the game that has happened to.
That was Bretonnia 11 years ago.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And today.
Yeah. The proud tradition of unsupportedness continues in the realm of Bretonnia. I mean, whatever. You know, they can still be in the world. Like, it doesn't. They can still be a thing in the story. Even it's irrelevant. It's just we're not making minis for that anymore. But Kislev, Nippon, Cathay, Kingdoms of Ind, Albion, whatever. You can name a million of these things that have had units or armies or, you know, some kind of support in a book or a White Dwarf or whatever at some point in the past, and they just said, yeah, we're not doing that. Right.
Yep. Another set of rumors that came down the line was just one of the individuals kind of talked about how, and these were very reliable rumor providers, that there are still a number of kits that they know were basically completed at one point in time, and they're not kind of sure. And those were 8th edition kits, and they're not kind of sure what has happened to those. So an example of this was the Tomb King's Bone Giant / Colossus was completed around the time of the latest like Wood Elf Tree Man, but the individual isn't sure whether a mold actually ended up like being completed or not. And then supposedly there were some Bretts that were coming down the line. A hippogriff, a plastic hippogriff kit had at least a cat image had been completed, but he's not sure obviously what happened with that either. So, and another mention was a dwarven juggernaut, which we've heard about. We thought was going to show up in the end time stuff and never did.
Yeah, for ages we've heard about that.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a good point of like, I think people underestimate just how difficult it is to get a fig out. Like how much Games Workshop goes through. There's a concept art, there's a conception period of just raw design. Somebody thinks up the thing.
Yep.
It goes to an artist who sketches it. It goes to a sculptor who sculpts the thing, right? And then it gets catted somewhere in there too. Probably gets catted out. Then they sculpt it, They do one of those back and forth. Then it's got to go out, get approvals. It's a big corporation. This isn't three guys sitting around in a basement deciding to knock out some figs, right? And I will guarantee you there are we would all love to have access to the deepest recesses of the files of the people who are on those teams, on those raw design teams, because that there's just tons of stuff in various stages of development, right? Just in their idea file, there's just this giant list, and it just gets smaller and smaller as you get to production, right?
Yeah, and actually, if you spend any time on eBay, you'll occasionally find models that were sculpted and actually produced as prototypes that never made it to the market from GW stuff.
Right.
And so those things certainly do exist. The prototypes do oftentimes, and they do leak out into the market occasionally.
At very ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
Because, that's you have the one. Way to go. If getting a unique thing is important to you, you have succeeded, which is awesome for you. I don't know what the hell that means, but it means something, I guess. All right. Good. What else we got? This was actually a pretty full week. There's a lot of confirmation, but there's a lot of other stuff, too.
Yeah, we had just this afternoon. We had another rumor come out again. I don't know how much, I don't know what weight this needs to be afforded, but the rumor suggested that that there's the 9th edition was supposedly more details about 9th edition. Supposedly it's going to include 6 weeks of the launch in Fantasy, which would be June 20th, arguably, according to this release.
The pre-release would be the 20th, right?
I thought
it would be the 20th, 27th would be the actual first stuff.
Okay. I thought it was actually 20th, but okay. Either way, 6 weeks of releases potentially would follow that, is what they're saying. Starter set. They're saying the first Army book would be out, which would be Empire. It's all going to be released in quick succession, and then Sigmarites are going to be another another nightly order that we're going to see with this set of releases.
Sure. A lot of interesting things. I think that's interesting. Again, take all this with a grain of salt. It's rumors. Who knows? If you haven't been licking a salt lick since this all started back in January, I don't know what you're doing. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy remains true. Don't panic. Lick some salt. Chill out. And enjoy the ride. And to me, I think that was really interesting. I would love it if we got 6 weeks of releases. I think that'd be fantastic. I'd hope there'd be a couple Army books in there or something.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, because if we had 6 weeks of releases, let's imagine that the box set is what first comes out, which is what I think one of the reliable rumor guys said. One of the reliable rumor guys said, he anticipates that it's going to get they're going to lead with the box set. And if that is the case, you supposedly have Chaos, which is a Khorne-heavy Chaos, paired with the new Empire, and so the new human army. And so what would be curious would be, are all 6 weeks the human Empire, or are some going to be some of the Chaos releases? I mean, is that the Tzeentch, or are they trying to stay at because we've had a bunch of Khorne releases recently already, and so the question would be what exactly is in that 6 weeks potentially?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Right. Personally, I would hope we'd get Empire and something else. Let's see some good guy release stuff out, right? I mean,
seriously.
You guys want to see some good guy stuff?
Yeah, I can see that, and I can get behind the 6 week release thing as well. I envision it more as definitely I agree with the box set idea, because that's just kind of how they do things. The box set comes out, it's going to have, Forces of Order and Forces of Destruction. One thing that I'm not 100% sure on is if there's going to be any new models in there. We all know Games Workshop is fantastic at repackaging things and putting stuff in a box and putting a different label on it and trying to sell it us in a different way. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if there was no new model in it. I hope there is something cool in there. As far as release schedule goes, I think it will be, the box set which will probably come with the rules for the small skirmish type entry game. And I think a lot of the, and again, this is just my opinion based on nothing at all except for my own personal wish listing, is that
why not?
it just rule stuff, kind of we get, a little more clarification on the rules and the game setting, as it were. The model releases, again, like I said, I wouldn't expect too much in the line of brand new models. They're pretty poor with that. They could use it as a time, as a springboard, if you will, to get people more interested, but is that really necessary when you have a brand new edition?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to make this call right now. You're going to see, here's Vince's complete, not for, out of nothing, butt pull prediction. You're going to see lots of new models for various forces of order, and a lot of them are going to look like good guy Blight Kings. It's going to be that kind of stuff. You're going to see all those good models you didn't get during the end times, when new Karl Franz Shazam happened, when all the elf crap happened. I'm not saying the elf stuff's in the first 6 weeks, but in this initial period, let's say 6 months.
I'm calling that it is. I think the new elf stuff will be in the first 6 weeks.
You're going to see these. They're going to drop these new kits on you like it's hot. And I think the elf stuff will look like the wood elf thing. I think like the wood elf aesthetic. I think you're right on that, Tom. You look at the aesthetic of the newest wood elves. They look like this perfect mix of high, dark, and wood elves, right?
Yeah. And just a quick callback. Like hold Eternal Guard sometime next to Sisters of Avalorn.
Right.
And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Their hair is braided identical. Like that's a high elf and wood elf unit. Hair is braided identical. The aesthetic is identical. The banners have the heart, the Avalorn heart. Like those two boxes could come from the exact same army.
Right.
Oh yeah, but I mean, Wild Riders and Glade Riders from 1992 have the same hair.
That's fair, but I think the aesthetic is somewhat telling when you look at it. But I think that's what they're going to go with regardless. And I think you're going to see. I want to see some big, beefy Sigmarite Knights type of stuff. I want to see. That's what I want to see. I want to see Order get some chaos-like choices. Order has always had to just rely on the fact that like we got people, and that's it. And look, this all goes back. I have had a bone to pick with this world for like a decade at least. Okay, and I'll deviate here for just a quick second. Everybody who was all complaining when Chaos won the end times, you didn't pay any attention to this world. Chaos always wins. Period. That's the story of this world. Chaos wins. They're the bad guys. They're better than everybody else. Chaos gods are bigger, badder. They're better than your gods who are just knockoffs. Those are the generic cereal. Your gods are the generic cereals in bags on the bottom shelf. The Chaos gods are Cheerios and Frosted Flakes, baby. And that's what the kids want. So, like, however many years ago the trailer for Warhammer Age of Reckoning came out, the Warhammer MMO, there's a great fight scene between some random Chaos Warrior and a Priest of Sigmar. And the Chaos Warrior starts beating the crap out of him, and the Priest of Sigmar gets all infused with the power of Sigmar. His eyes light on fire, his hammer lights on fire. He hits the Chaos Warrior once the Chaos Warrior knees him in the balls and then kills him. If that should tell you everything you need to know about the Warhammer world.
That about wraps it up.
Yeah. The power of Sigmar will not save you, as it was in that world. I'd like to see the new world change that paradigm. Chaos gods are gone, not really paying attention. They're weaker. Forces of Order. Sigmar remakes the thing in the void with the little power crystal stone. And boom, now we got a fighting chance. That's what I'm all about. That had nothing to do with any rumors. That was just a complete rant, apropos of nothing. Take that, trailer I'm still angry about from 10 years ago.
7, to be exact.
Whatever. It feels like forever ago.
It does.
All right. Anything else we wanted to cover from for rumors?
No, just a lot of waiting. That's the answer.
No, that's fine. I think there was a couple of little things that I wanted to make mention of. The dates are seeming pretty solid for either like the 20th or the 27th. It depends on exactly how much Space Marine / Dark Angels releases, right? So if we get the full 3 weeks of Space Marine and then 1 week of Dark Angels, most strong inclination is leading to that being right after it. if that's true and you get the full 4 weeks, then you're talking about pre-order on the 20th. First week of Fantasython 2015 begins on the 27th. So that would mean to me that, sometime soon we're going to start seeing some solid stuff. Because we're going to, once we get to within a couple weeks of that, things will start leaking. I think about when the first images from Archaon leaked, right? Because somebody took a picture of the book over in,
Yep.
Shanghai or wherever those books were printed. And the second thing that was really interesting, you didn't mention it, was just this little byline in this weirdly translated rumor that was just so strange to me. Okay? And I thought it was fascinating, and I wanted to see what you think about it and what the rest of our audience thinks about it. Okay? And the rumor line is from 523. Okay? Most of the rest of this rumor allied with stuff we've heard before. There are 6 major factions, including that are basically combinations of independent books. So exactly what we've talked about before, exactly what we called here on Warhammer Weekly months ago.
Yep.
Some existing units can ally with multiple factions. Again, watch it. So here was the one that I like. Again, this comes from a bad translation, but I want to know what you think it means. Glottkin becomes the new world. What does that mean?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's a line on. It was on. If somebody wants to see what I'm talking about, you can go to Bell of Lost Souls. It's on Bowls. So whether whatever.
Yeah.
But it was, yes, Glottkin becomes the new, and it actually has quotes around it. New world.
If I were to take Nick, do you want to take a shot at it as our guest?
Absolutely.
I don't know. This sounds like something from an episode of Sherlock, or Nick Cage from National Treasure might be able to figure this one out.
Absolutely. I think the answer is on the back of the Declaration of Independence.
Did this? When was this snippet released? Was it during the Glottkin book?
No, this is a recent rumor. This is like 2 days ago, and this is what it said. The exact. I'm literally reading you the exact bad translation. Glottkin becomes the new world. 5 words.
Wow. I don't know. Does he? I got nothing. Does he consume it?
I do not know.
What?
The result of
Glottkin. I think of Glottkin as, the triumvirate of the brothers. I don't. Yeah. That's what it is. So. I would speculate.
I think the reference to that. So here's my guess, and maybe this is how GW redeems that terrible book, because everybody says Glottkin was the terrible book, right? Of End Times.
That is generally the statement. Yes.
Okay. So maybe what they're talking about there is the setting, or like what happened in Glottkin, or the location in Glottkin, like not Glottkin the brothers, but Glottkin the book, like the End Times book.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a trashed Altdorf that is sitting harshly in the Garden of Nurgle. Like that was the thing that happened there, right?
That is true.
And so maybe maybe that's why we got such a detailed explanation of Glottkin, is that's actually that's the setup for the next setting. Whatever this skirmish game is actually in the remnants of a trashed Altdorf that's been infested by the partial overlap with the Garden of Nurgle.
That'd be a pretty awesome setting for the skirmish game. Glottkin is also the book where Karl Franz dies, right? Like he is, we learn later. Spoilers, as always. Why are you watching the show if you're we talk about stuff that's coming in the future every week? I think you know at this point that we're going to give spoilers. But I'll say it anyways. All right, now you've had enough time to skip ahead or something. So Glottkin is where Karl Franz dies, and we learn in book 5 that he's actually legitimately dead the whole time, and it's basically just Sigmar, occupying him. Sigmar moved in and set up shop, and was like, "I'm gonna use this body, so this one's mine now." You know, it's fine. So maybe that's a reference to Carl Franz being the coming back, and he's the Sigmar's the guy. Whatever. Who knows? I thought that was a very fascinating line. I have no good guesses as to what that means, but I thought that was a hilariously, wonderfully bad translated rumor. So,
if that has anything to do with anything, like my call would be Altdorf. The Nurgle infested Altdorf as the new, which would overlap with the warp, like with the actual Garden of the Nurgle's domain within the warp. Which would just it would give reason for the city to not have the same layout as Altdorf as we've traditionally known. It's been warped, and so you could get like kind of the Mordheim, nobody knows the true layout where everybody's looking for the real map type of thing with the new Altdorf that's been reshuffled that nobody knows what the new Altdorf actually looks like, or maybe it doesn't ever stay the same.
That could be cool. Plus, it'd be very distinct environments too, right? Because you could have like the Garden of Nurgle could have like jungles and fungus forests and stuff like that mixed in with a dense urban environment. So that could be, you know, very fun for your game table. All right, I like it.
Make it happen, GW.
There you go. Well, the time will tell, and hopefully less time every week. All right, with all that out of the way, anything else you wanted to touch on before we move on? I think that's everything that I wanted to touch. Okay, so let's move on to some hobby time. So Nick, what's on your table? What have you been working on?
My hobby table has been presently occupied. I know this is Warhammer Weekly, but I've been doing Warhammer 40K stuff.
That's all right.
A couple guys, well, the Skull Bros Awesome Crew, they do a gaming group in the Minneapolis area. They have a podcast if you've never listened to that. Entertaining stuff. A lot of the guys from there started up a 40K escalation league at Fantasy Flight Games. 6 months, 250 points a month, just because everyone just was really genuinely sick of the end times. I mean, tournament-wise, everything. People just kind of have gone into this holding pattern, and I still see people playing it. The fantasy, of course, but you know, I think a lot of people are just in the holding pattern. So we, as you know, I'm not just as a general gaming group, decided to, you know, keep busy on something else, maintain interest, you know, keep things hot, keep things moving. So I've been doing 40K stuff. I've been painting up word bears. I did a Hellbrute and 10 Marines month 1. Now we're in month 2. I'm doing a unit of Daemonettes, Vince. I bet you're going to dig up on those.
I do indeed.
And 7 Raptors. I think I got the Daemonettes pretty much wrapped up. And the 7 Raptors I got to get done here in the next week or so, but I should be able to finish those up no problem. I should say a couple days. Also got Saga going on. That's a game. Infinity stuff happening. Just kind of everything. I've just really since Adepticon, which was man, I don't even know if it was March or April anymore. I've really just been doing other stuff. Incidentally, I did also just sign up for Blood in the Sun. That's going to be that's a War Fantasy tournament in the Chicagoland area, June 26th through 28th. So I'll have to literally dig my forces out of their respective totes that are stashed away in nooks and crannies of my hobby room, and I have to have a list written by tomorrow at midnight for that.
Oh, hey, well, plenty of time then to test and refine. You got a full 24 hours.
You gonna take Elven Legions there?
Yeah, pretty certain. I got between High Elves. You can take Elven Legions in the tournament, but you're gonna take a 5. The comp. Well, there's a little comp, but the scoring is based on your opponent. So your opponent is going to give you like a comp score based on your list. Now that's cumulative throughout the 5 games. But if you take a Legion's list, any of the books from the End Time stuff, be it Undead Legions, Chaos Legions, or Elven Legions, you're going to take a 5-point penalty to your overall score from that, just as a way to kind of, I don't know, keep people from doing it. I'm going balls out because I have aspirations to qualify for a Midwest Masters position. I need to do well here in the next couple tournaments coming up. But yeah, I'm going for throats.
Nice. Now, is it 5 points to your total battle score, or is that like, or is it just a 5 point? Your comp is 5 lower or something?
No, I think that's going to be 5 points off your total stuff. I was looking at the site. Yeah, it'll be 5 points off your total, but I'm hoping to, make that up with, smiling, my jolly demeanor, and of course battle points.
Sure.
By murdering
so
people.
Basically, you 20-0 5 opponents straight. You're walking with 95 points.
Something like that. I mean, yeah, that's all right.
That's fine. You can. We have faith in you. I'm sure you can absolutely table everybody, but still be friendly enough. I mean, if you're wearing that hat, who wouldn't give you a good sports vote, even as they're getting kicked in the teeth? I think you can't help but make friends. That's what I would say. Nobody gives a bad sports vote to a man in that hat. That's just bad.
No.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, we'll return back to the Elven host very shortly. Tom, what's on your table?
Still doing a lot of gluing. Putting chaos, as I mentioned last week, which no one actually knew because
nobody knows what you're talking about, Tom, because there was no. Yeah. Last week was the lost episode.
Oh yeah, it's true. Oh, by the way, do you want me to jump back to that other rumor from last week that I haven't shared?
We'll hit it at the end of the show.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I made a likely bad decision and purchased a very, 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 very large Chaos Dwarf army last week. And like we're talking like 80 dwarves, like 80 Forge World dwarves, large. Like we're talking like everything from every main line, everything from the Forge World line, everything from all the secondary lines, Russian alternative, all
the bull centaurs and war machines and everything.
Everything, and all of it is like unput together, unprimed, like perfect condition. So I'm doing a lot of gluing. So I'm working
Speaking of armies no longer supported.
Yeah,
there's a great one.
Working on the Russian alternative. Some of their medals. So,
yeah. Very good. All right.
Wow, that's kind of a bold move there, Tom. I had a Chaos Dwarf army many moons ago, and I sold it off. Not exceptionally fun to play, I found, and nobody really likes playing it.
This is terrible for me and you. Let's do it.
No, I really like abnormal. Like in addition to it's gonna be my painting project. Like actually, I just want to paint them. Honestly, I'm gonna play them, but like it's visually they are inspiring to me. And I mean I don't have to suffer through that. I want to make Vince suffer through playing me. But more than that, like I'm guessing you're talking about the gun line, the competitive gun line setup for Chaos Dwarves is what's not fun to play and to play against.
That or just the lore of Hashut. I mean, it's all pretty bad.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
I guess you can take all hobgoblins and bull centaurs, but that I mean,
I'll say this. I will likely mix it up. And so I generally try to always change my list every time I play, no matter what I'm playing. I picked that up from Vince. It's a good practice. And so because of that, it forces a lot of non-conventional things, and it forces you to learn the limits and the extent of your army. And so I will probably field a gun line a couple times, and I probably will field the Lord of Hashut a couple times. But the reality is that there's just enough there that I think that it'll be enjoyable.
Yeah, my rule is quarter crown in friendly games. I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick. What did you say?
Oh, I just said there was a lot of beautiful models in that range for sure. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. There's some really cool stuff going on. I love this stuff.
And I got basically everything brand new at 40% retail, so it's real hard to say no to something like that.
Sure. Yeah, my rule with that for friendly table games is min quarter crap. Like most people say it's a quarter core, like there's your army construction rules. I go quarter crap. You should be like always dedicating a quarter of your army to just the junk, like something you would not take in a competitive list. That's what a quarter of your army should be. That every time in a friendly table game, if you're not practicing for something.
I don't know. I don't know how many times I've seen Ustabi hit the table. I'll be honest.
Absolutely. I've used those garbage things. I'm not afraid to wheel them out.
What about
I own the dumb things. What's that?
What about Boshtabi?
I have used absolutely. I have made all shooting TK armies with bow shopty and 3-packs, just sitting around waiting to get like bubble multi-shotted. Yes, I've taken the giant with the bow. Absolutely. I am not. When I say min quarter crap, I'm not afraid to go all the way. Like whatever. It's a friendly game. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like it's giggles sometimes. As long as you have a good time, who cares?
And
all that, so winning must not be that important to me.
And all of that to say, I am obviously willing to put down an Alario army on the table regularly.
Sure.
So having my opponent hate me, not that big a deal.
Yeah, you already do that. So that's fine. Why? Because you play Elven Hosts. Yes! Segue, people. That is called Hostful Mastery. All right. Does it diminish when you point out your good segues? I don't know. Anyway, so that leads us right into Elven Hosts. And tonight's segment, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're going to talk about the Elven Hosts. Obviously brought to us by Kane, writing on the back of 2 other previous host or combined lists, right? We know we had the Undead Legions, and that was pretty popular. Certainly around my neck of the woods, I loved it because it made TK not the worst thing ever. And then we had Chaos Legions, which was like, okay, that's all right, I guess. It's fine, because there was a couple little innate balancing features in there, like demons going through unstable instead of demonic instability. And then then Kane came around, and the doors just blew right off. And we went Elven Host and said, screw it. Throw everybody together. You get everything except what? Like Core Hill. You can't take him, right? That's legitimate because he's a corpse at that point. So I think that's like your only not allowed choice.
Core and Dark Hand, I think you lose as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those 2 real hot special characters that were making everybody's tournament lists, I'm sure. But other than that, yes. And you get all the rules of all the elves shoved together into one army. Now, theoretically, in the list, in the rules, if someone is using an Elven Host, then it is supposed to somehow auto-force the Kane magic rules to go into effect. Which, in my estimation, the entire community just suddenly looked at and went, well, forget that. And that we just all forgot that sentence existed.
We lose Vince?
Yeah, I think he's frozen. I think he was talking about how people just ignored the sentence about Kane magic and said, no, we're not doing that. 4d6, I can cast spells over and over and over again. Just reluctant to change. That's a pretty big change game-wise. What do you think, Thomas?
No, I agree. And let me just segue briefly before Vince unfreezes. And I'm sure that he's probably still in the middle of a rant right now. And he's just going on unimpeded and uninterrupted by the Frozen, which is fantastic. Okay, so all of that to say, it's funny because if there is any army that the Kane rules would actually benefit the most, it's the Elven Host. Like, if you look at their magic dominance, if you look at, like, throwing a Lore Master on the table, hey, Vince is back.
Hey, there you go. Did you cover for me when I just went silent?
Maybe.
That was a great joke, but that's okay.
You'll have to watch the live, the recorded cast and see what happened.
There you go.
anyways, what I was saying is that if there's any army that will actually benefit from the Kane rules, it's probably the Elven army. You know, if they drop a Lore Master of Hoeth on the table, you know, they can come out swinging with any core spell. There's just not a lot of other armies that are going to be that are going to benefit like the High Elves are.
Yep. And that's it's exactly it. The restriction was empowering and punishing your enemy by making them play this magic. Yes. Yep. All right, so let's get into it. So we will each name our good, our bad, and our ugly. You can pick it and give yourself you know, maybe a sentence or two, or a paragraph, or a soliloquy, or whatever you like, as to why you think it is that thing. So, Elven hosts, Nick, you are the guest, so you get the blessing and the curse to start. So what is the good of the Elven host?
Well, I think, for me, obviously, the good of the Elven host is just it's a veritable buffet of selections and choices. I mean, you can literally make infinite army lists that are all really good and competitive. For me, it was actually really cool because I had been collecting a Dark Elf army and a Wood Elf army on the side, and then when this Kane book thing came, felt really great. So just choice and selection for me.
All right, very good. Tom, what about you? What's your good?
Sorry, he just froze. I lost almost all of Nick's good. What I would actually say is that for me, it's actually like the low hanging fruit to this is like the characters, or there's a bunch of other like really neat good things. Obviously, the selection of units, as Nick suggested. But for me, actually, the modeling opportunities is the thing that like is inspiring to me the most. And what I mean by that is, like, I had talked last week in the episode that will never air, that, like, one of the units that I would have loved to have, like, High Elves to have would be, like, to have a Monsters Cav, like, Griffin unit, or Monsters Cav, like, Eagle Rider unit. And what this allows me to do is to make that. To take the Skycutter Eagles, to slap some High Elves on the back of the Skycutter Eagles, and to bring in, quote unquote, like the Wild Elf Cav, but to make them high, like give them the High Elf aesthetic. And so it actually like lends for some neat proxying, like lore stuff, that some flexibility that's not actually there in the actual like army composition. And like Nick did this with his tournament list that he put together.
What you're saying, Nick. You are already an expert in this. You have a beautiful army consisting of what? Probably all three factions modded onto one aesthetic, right?
Without a doubt.
Yep. And so like that, like I think that that's the good of this, is that like I think it's just it has some really neat, compelling, beautiful opportunities that wouldn't be there otherwise.
I like it. All right, very good. My good. Assuming I'm actually still talking this time. What fun internet is. Yes. So my good is this. You can make some crazy lists of monsters. Like just monsters, weird creatures everywhere. Hydras and Pahonixes and all sorts of weird stuff. And I love monsters. Monsters are fun to paint, they're fun to model, they're fun to play. They're neat. They get shot by cannonballs and explode into little puffs of feathers and scales. That's great. Why would you be sad about that? So yeah, I'm all about. I like. It's really a great monster mash sort of list. Maybe only the Chaos Legions can do it better. So there you go. That's my good. I like big monsters. All right, Nick, back to you, the guest, with the bad. What is the big bad?
All right, now for the bad, I'm going to take a different view or take on this, and it's going to be a slightly it's going to be connected to my good in the fact that the bad is there are some nasty combos that are achievable through these books. one of the tournament list I just took to Adepticon was a Cauldron of Blood in a unit of Sisters of Avalorn. Pretty large unit of Sisters of Avalorn with a unit of True Flight Graveguard right behind it, all within the 6-inch bubble. Now, I was only capped at 2,000 points, so I had to keep it a little bit, sensible. But coming up for this next tournament, I'm going to make a nasty list that's going to be focused on that tactic. And even if the Cauldron goes away, it's still a really effective shooting list. And I think that's the direction I'm going to go. Combos are just, it's wicked bad nasty. You can do stuff with. You can make the Warlock buses. You can have all the pegged people in stuff in a Dragon Prince bus. It gets weird really, really fast.
And what I think helped you there was now the con had ruled that it was like straight raw interpretation of the rules. So it was letting you re-roll all wound rolls on shooting including, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anything to the contrary since that either.
Sure. So you think the next GT will basically accept the same ruling?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that is scary brutal. When that is the interpretation, that is, and I believe you bagged yourself not one but 2 Malekiths at that tournament with that list. Is that right?
That's right. I killed 2 Malekiths. One on the top of 3, his turn 3, and one on my. In my 2 games against Malekith, he didn't make it into turn 4 in either one.
I would say you definitely had the rock to his scissors. That is for sure. All right, very good. Tom, what's bad?
What I would say is actually it's just really frustrating. And, I've kind of alluded to this one before, but it's clear when they wrote the Dark Elf book that they just didn't have this in mind. Or if they did, they just wanted to piss off their players. Because there are a number of combos of things that just don't synergize. And so, for example, the Bloodrack Cauldron or the Bloodrack Shrine doesn't. Can you guys hear me? Am I frozen? Okay. The Bloodrack Shrine debuffs any it debuffs any non-Dark Elf unit, and so the consequence of this is that even if you're in a Legion list, you're debuffing your own units, and that's a problem. That's just that's sloppy. Because it doesn't synergize. It's just a very painful thing. And there are a couple, particularly in the Dark Elf unit selections, where you see this crop up occasionally, and it's a very painful thing that limits some of those the compatibility of units and stuff like that. And it really bothers me.
Yeah, I think that's just. I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's definitely sloppy rules writing, because in the Nagash book they specifically say that undead, Nakar, and undead are all one thing, and the rules are all in between each other, and it's all symmetrical and good. And in this book they don't do that. So there are things like you said should.
Yeah, so an example of this is the Bloodrack Shrine is a perfect example of this. I would love to see that get some more table time. That's one of those that doesn't get a lot of table time, at least not as much as the Cauldron. And I would love to put that on the table with some unorthodox combination with other High Elf and Dark Elf units or High Elf and Wood Elf units. But that just doesn't that's not viable in a mixed list. So That's what I'd say.
All right, my bad. Me bad? All right, here's what I think's bad. What I think's bad is that because they didn't build in any sort of restriction or kind of penalty to it in the same way as the other two, I think people are very afraid of it. People just sort of have this prohibition of the Elven host list especially, and it kind of gave all the Legion lists a bad name. When you mentioned it was neg 5 for the Legion lists on that, I was like, man, Undead Legion is getting the short end of that stick. There is no way those are worth the same thing. There is no way. That should be 1, 3, 5. You know what I mean? If you're going to have negative penalty all of them in order. So but at the same time, I think people then feel bad when they don't want to take it against their friends and stuff. Most of my friends that run elves They take elven hosts all the time.
Unashamedly.
Yeah. And, like, I don't care. Whatever. You know, because we're still having friendly games. Like, it's fun. But, you know, they're not bringing, like, total, you know, just butt-kicker lists that just show up and beat my teeth down my throat. So, it just, you know, yeah, you want to use Elven Host because you want to put some fun stuff together. Knock yourself out. Sounds good to me. I think the overarching rule of don't be a douche should still be the guiding principle. And you know, although there are nasty combos, there's nasty filth pre those lists. I didn't want to face that any more than I want to face the worst of worst filth when I'm trying to bring, you know, 9 Ushabti to it. You don't want to bring Ushabti to a gunfight. All right. So now we get to the ugly. Nick, what is the ugly? UGLY.
All right, ugly for the Elven Legion post. I'm going to kind of grab a little bit from Tom's. I think it was his good thing. In he mentioned that a good thing was modeling aesthetic. A lot of now I'm a hobbyist and I do a lot of stuff all the time. So I took the book as an opportunity to do something really cool with it. I've seen at different tournaments and stuff just ugly things. No effort. Just I want to put this out with the stuff, and it is literally ugly. A part B to the ugly thing is going to be the stigma. For me, that kind of falls into your bad, Vince, you talked about earlier. Is, I mean, yeah, it's bad, but what? For friendly play, I agree 100%. I mean, there's a ugly stigma with some guy that shows up with, you know, some douchey, insane, overpowered list that, you know, anyone else can just, you know, not have a chance against. But with GT play concerns, I mean, that's what you expect. I expect everyone to bring the nastiest, cruelest thing they possibly can because they're trying to win while having a good time with friends and, you know, engaging in shenanigans. But ultimately, I mean, everyone's there. I mean, I can't say that everybody's there to win, but I think the large majority of people that go to GTs are there to win. And have a good time, obviously. I love having it. I always have a good time. But there is the subtext there that, you know, I'm paying hundreds of dollars and taking work off. I also would like to, you know, win. Or at least do well and have fun at the same time. So my ugly is the failure to embrace the hobby opportunity that is given to us by this, and also just the stigma.
Yeah, I'm down. I get it. Yeah.
I like it. Tom, what's your ugly?
It's funny because like we're all kind of swapping like goods, bads, and uglies. Like, and so for me, my ugly is just how filthy some of the lists are that can come out of this, and particularly it's the ugliness of like for me what it does for me as a player. Like I am never, if I run a combined list, I am never going to put Reavers on the table again, ever, because for the same points, I'm always going to put Dark Riders on the table. Like so, like it's there's just not even we're not even in the same ballpark, and so like what I would say is that from an ugly standpoint, it's what it does for some people, myself particularly, of like just the min-maxing optimization. Like I'm not going to put something terrible when I can put something better for the same points. And I like there's an ugliness to that.
So you're saying it's like crack and you're an addict, and it's just like, and it's just there's just cocaine everywhere, just coke, and you're like, Tony, you're just Tony Montana. You can't help yourself.
Yeah, basically. Yep, just dirty, filthy, nasty dirtiness.
I like it. All right, fair enough. All right. Ugly for me. The special characters of the actual combined Elven host list. The versions of the special characters that occur in that final list. Malekith, Alariel, and to a lesser degree, even Caradhran, although he's probably the most fair.
Imric are gross.
What's that?
Tyrion and Imric are disgustingly good.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
also good. Yeah, how could I forget those two? Ridiculous.
Well,
I mean, like, yeah, but in the final list, the final Malekith and the final Ilariel, I would just want to punch both of them in the face repeatedly. I don't care if she is tough. She's toughness 4. She can take it. She's a toughness 4 elf. She's the toughest elf alive. Yeah, I just think the special characters are over the top for an over the top list.
Yeah, I mean that's legitimate. I think that like it hurts me when I hear you say that just from a Caradhran standpoint, because like I think that like I love what they did with him there. That makes him like eminently playable as opposed to his previous incarnation. Like, let me say this: I use the previous incarnation as well, but paying that much for a 2-wound hero, like,
Yeah, I understand. I get it. Like, I get it. I'm just saying, the special characters is where you start to see the points creep, right? Like, when I look at when you're getting a L'Oreal for X hundreds of points retail, and I'm looking at, like, my books and seeing what I'm getting for those same hundreds of points out of my old special characters, I'm like, this does not add up. Something here, Cetra, same cost as the newest L'Oreal. No, that is not appropriate.
No, the best comparison is when we did the Orion comparison to the new L'Oreal.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Orion at like 600 plus points if you take his dumb dogs. And, you know, he does like nothing. He does nothing. Nothing. He has a decent shooting attack at a at sort of middling range. That's what he's got. Look out, folks. He's coming for you with that spear. King of the Woods. 600 points. No. It's ridiculous. And Malekith is just as bad, because although, Nick, you've bagged yourself so many of those Malekiths, you had a perfect list meant to directly counter that guy and crush him, right? But if you don't have that rock, he's just going to walk all over you and basically make his 1,000 points ungettable, right? Whether or not, like, you could still win, but he's holding his 1,000 points that whole time. So you better, if it's like, as you said, you had 2,000 points, if you don't have that rock, you can't lose more than 1,000 points or you lose the game because he's not giving up his points. Right.
Yeah, meanwhile, he's murdering your army.
Right. And walking between worlds units into positions that they shouldn't be in, and just, he's disrupting the game in all phases. Yeah. So, but those two in particular, I find the most grotesque.
hey, I've never put Malekith on the field. I like, as filthy as I am, let me just disclaimer, I'm not willing to go there.
Yeah, well, that's also because, as we mentioned before, we sort of have the soft understanding that special characters over 650 points need special approval. In general, like, even with Ilariel, I hate her, but I'm not going to be like, don't play her at my table. But anything over 650, it's like, you should probably talk about that before that shows up on the table. Glottkin, Nagash, Ascendant Karl Franz, something like that. If someone wants to show up with, like, a Vermin Lord, I don't care. Go ahead. That's the same point cost that, like, really expensive lords and heroes are anyways, right? Like a Greater Demon with full-on gifts, or a Chaos, a Demon Prince with magic items and full gifts, and Vampire Lord fully kitted. All these things are clocking in near that range anyways. So, whatever.
Or Gorthor the Beast Lord.
Yes. For other insane power, such as choices like that. Real game breakers. Like King Leon Kerr at like 750 points, right? I mean, it's a guy on a hippogriff, so he must be super good.
Completely.
Yeah, that is not overpriced at all. Okay. Well, very good. What we want to know, of course, out there is, what is your good, bad, and ugly of the Elven host? Do you like the combined elves? Do you want to see them go forward into the future? Do you want to see an elvish faction with sub-armies underneath it? Do you want to see only one big elvish army? What do you think? We'll be interested, YouTube land. Leave your comments for what you think is your good, bad, and ugly, and where you hope the elves go as we approach ever closer. Perhaps this is the 1 month mark. If it's the 27th, today's 27th. Maybe this is the 1 month mark of the release of 9th edition. It could be the case. Could be. We'll know soon. All right. So, gentlemen, final thoughts as we close out here? Super exciting.
Final thoughts for me. Just thanks again for having me on, Vince. It's been a blast chatting with you. I think for me, just still kind of holding pattern. I guess we'll see it when we'll see it. I'm keeping myself busy otherwise. Hobbying away. There's an endless, veritable buffet of hobby items out there. We don't. And whatever does happen, I'm going to support it and I'm going to do it. I mean, I have the models, I have the investment, I'm going to continue to play in some aspect or another. So I'm on board.
I love it. That is a fantastic attitude. Everyone out there, listen to Nick. Be like Nick. Hashtag be like Nick. All right, there we go. Tom, any closing thoughts?
No.
Good stuff. Hope we see something soon. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Nick, thank you very much. Sir, you are welcome back anytime. We would love to have you back. As to everybody else, see you next Wednesday.